What if I told you that every second you've spent worrying about time running out, every moment you've anxiously watched the clock, every fear you've had about eternity lasting forever? What if all of that was based on a complete misunderstanding of how time actually works beyond this physical world? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mind-bending revelations ever channeled through the legendary Edgar Cayce, a discovery that completely shatters everything we think we know about time, death, and what happens to our consciousness when we cross over to the other side. Has this ever happened to you, lying awake at night, wondering if your departed loved ones are somehow trapped in an endless waiting period, counting the days, months, or years until you'll be reunited? Or perhaps you've feared that eternity itself might feel like an unbearably long stretch of endless time. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because according to Cayce's extraordinary trance readings, time as we know it, with its rigid structure of seconds, minutes, hours, and years, simply ceases to exist once we cross the threshold of death. This isn't just mystical speculation. These revelations came through decades of documented sessions where Cayce, in deep trance states, accessed what he called the Akashic records to bring comfort and understanding to grieving families during some of history's darkest periods. Picture this. While we're down here on Earth, desperately clinging to our calendars and clocks, measuring our lives in birthdays and anniversaries, the departed exist in a completely different reality, where consciousness itself becomes the only true measure of experience. Some souls, Cayce revealed, can experience what feels like centuries in a single moment, while others might pass through what we consider thousands of years, as if it were nothing more than a gentle breath. This fundamental shift in how time operates has profound implications for every single one of us. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this concept doesn't just change how we view death, it transforms how we should be living right now, in this very moment. The state of consciousness you cultivate today, the forgiveness you choose to embrace, or the resentment you decide to hold on to, these aren't just affecting your current happiness, they're literally shaping the texture of your eternal experience. During the Great Depression and through the devastating years of World War II, families would travel hundreds of miles to reach Edgar Cayce's modest office in Virginia Beach, carrying with them not just grief, but desperate questions about the nature of time itself in the spiritual realm. What they discovered would revolutionize their understanding of separation, reunion, and the very fabric of existence beyond physical death. But here's where it gets truly fascinating, and why this knowledge is more relevant today than ever before. If content like this resonates with your spiritual journey, I'd love to have you subscribe. We explore deeper mysteries here that go beyond surface-level teachings, exactly what souls ready for profound transformation are seeking. The hidden truth behind these revelations becomes even more profound when we understand what was actually happening in those dimly lit sessions during the 1930s. Picture Virginia Beach in the midst of the Great Depression. Families had lost everything, not just their financial security, but often their loved ones to despair, illness, and tragedy. These weren't casual seekers of spiritual entertainment. These were broken-hearted people carrying grief so heavy it threatened to crush their very will to live. When Edgar Cayce would slip into his deep trance state, his breathing would slow, his voice would transform, and through him came revelations that would forever change how these families understood suffering and time itself. What emerged was a startling discovery. The soul's experience of time has absolutely nothing to do with earthly clocks, calendars, or the rotation of our planet. Instead, it's entirely determined by the state of consciousness the soul maintains. This transformation in understanding hit like a lightning bolt. A restless soul trapped in suffering, Cayce explained, could experience what feels like endless stretching time. Imagine being caught in your worst moment and having it feel like it lasts for centuries. But here's the remarkable flip side. A soul at peace, one that had learned to release attachment and embrace forgiveness, might pass through what we measure as thousands of years, as if it were nothing more than a gentle, blissful instant. The impact of this revelation goes far beyond death itself. It completely revolutionizes how we should approach every single decision we make while we're still here in these physical bodies. Your mindset right now, your choices about forgiveness, your journey toward inner peace, these aren't just nice spiritual concepts. They're literally programming the fabric of your eternal experience. The earthly mind, Cayce revealed, remains chained to physical cycles, sunrise and sunset, the changing seasons, the ticking of clocks. But the spirit operates on an entirely different frequency, measuring existence through growth, healing, and the expansion of consciousness. This means that every moment of genuine spiritual development, every breakthrough in understanding, every act of authentic compassion creates a kind of temporal acceleration in the soul's experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation because what happened next in Cayce's sessions revealed something that changes everything we think we know about waiting, separation, and reunion with those we love. The families sitting in that small room were about to discover that grief itself might be based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how connection actually works across dimensions. Write in the comments, time is consciousness. If this perspective is starting to shift how you think about your own spiritual journey. The transformation that occurred in that Virginia Beach office became even more profound when a heartbroken widow posed the question that haunted millions during those dark years. Is my husband waiting for me in heaven? Her voice carried the weight of unbearable loneliness, the kind of grief that makes each day feel like an eternity of separation. But Cayce's response shattered every assumption she had about waiting, time, and connection across dimensions. Through his trance state, Cayce revealed that her husband's soul could experience her eventual arrival as immediate, not because time moved faster for him, but because in true eternity, waiting simply doesn't operate. The way our earthbound minds comprehend it. The impact of this revelation rippled through everyone present. Behind the scenes of physical reality, connection exists in a completely different framework, one where love transcends the illusion of temporal separation. What makes this even more remarkable is how these spiritual revelations align perfectly with the scientific breakthroughs that were emerging during the same era. While Einstein was revolutionizing physics with his theories about relativity, showing how time bends and warps based on speed and gravity, Cayce was simultaneously describing spiritual relativity decades before the scientific community fully grasped these concepts. The hidden truth was that consciousness itself affects time perception, just as physical forces bend the fabric of space-time. This parallel wasn't coincidental. It revealed a fundamental principle operating at both physical and spiritual levels of existence. Your mindset, your emotional state, your level of spiritual development. These factors literally alter your experience of temporal reality, both here and in the afterlife. The decisions you make about forgiveness, love, and inner peace aren't just affecting your current happiness. They're programming the very structure of your eternal experience. Cayce would often explain this using a profound metaphor. Time is but a shadow of eternity. Picture a tree casting its shadow on the ground. The shadow moves, shifts, and changes constantly, but the tree itself remains solid and permanent. What we experience as physical time is merely the shadow cast by eternal consciousness. Our clocks, calendars, and aging bodies are just flickering projections of something far more vast and unchanging. This understanding completely revolutionizes how we approach our spiritual journey. Every moment of genuine growth, every breakthrough in consciousness, every act of authentic compassion creates ripples that extend far beyond our physical lifespan. The revelations coming through Cayce weren't just comforting grieving families, they were unveiling the actual mechanics of how consciousness operates across different dimensions of reality. Now, I want to explore how this principle manifests in ways that will completely change your perspective on what happens in those crucial moments immediately after death. Write in the comments, "I see the shadow," if you're starting to understand how our physical experience of time relates to eternal consciousness. The urgency behind these revelations became even more intense when the world plunged into the devastating years of World War II. Suddenly, Cayce's modest office was flooded with desperate letters and visitors. Mothers clutching photographs of sons who would never return home, wives holding wedding rings of husbands lost in distant battles, families torn apart by a conflict that seemed to devour young lives by the thousands. The questions they brought carried a weight that went beyond ordinary grief. Were their loved ones somehow lost in timeless wandering, trapped in some cosmic waiting room, confused and alone? But the hidden truth that emerged through Cayce's trance sessions revealed something far more hopeful and profound. Time, he emphasized, was never a prison for the departed soul. Instead, it remained fluid, responsive, and completely malleable based on the level of awareness and consciousness the spirit maintained. This revelation transformed everything families understood about loss and separation. The impact of this discovery extends far beyond death itself. It reaches directly into every decision you're making right now, in this very moment. Your mindset, your emotional patterns, your journey toward inner peace. These aren't just affecting your current quality of life, they're literally programming the texture of your eternal experience. If a soul's torment can make moments stretch like centuries, then carrying bitterness, anger or guilt doesn't just poison your earthly days. It fundamentally shapes how long any suffering feels once you cross over. This understanding creates an entirely new framework for approaching personal transformation. Every grudge you choose to release, every moment of genuine forgiveness, every step toward emotional healing becomes an investment in the quality of your eternity. The decisions you make about letting go of resentment, embracing compassion, and cultivating inner peace aren't just nice spiritual concepts. They're practical preparations for navigating a dimension where consciousness itself determines temporal experience. This channel exists for people who recognize there's something deeper beneath ordinary reality. If these revelations shifted your understanding, hit subscribe and let's continue exploring these life-changing insights together. Behind the scenes of physical reality, souls who have learned to transcend attachment and embrace spiritual awareness discover something extraordinary. They can move through what we measure as vast stretches of time as if it were nothing more than a gentle, instantaneous breath. The revelations coming through Cayce showed that peace doesn't just feel good in the moment. It creates actual transcendence of time itself in the afterlife. This means your spiritual journey right now is far more significant than you might realize. Every meditation practice, every act of forgiveness, every choice to respond with love, instead of fear, is creating the foundation for how you'll experience eternity. The quality of consciousness you're developing today becomes the lens through which you'll perceive time itself beyond death. Now, I want to reveal how this principle manifests in the actual moment of transition, because what happens in those first instants after death will completely revolutionize your understanding of consciousness and time. Write in the comments, "I choose peace," if you're ready to start making decisions that shape your eternal experience. What emerged from those profound sessions was perhaps the most revolutionary understanding of reality itself. Cayce would gently but firmly remind every visitor that the biggest mistake we make during our earthly journey is assuming time is some kind of absolute universal constant. This fundamental misunderstanding keeps us trapped in anxiety about death, separation, and eternity. The hidden truth he revealed was that time exists only as an illusion of the material plane, a kind of training ground where consciousness learns to navigate different states of awareness. The transformation in understanding became deeply personal during one particularly moving session in 1932. A family, devastated by the loss of their young child, came to Cayce carrying the unbearable weight of imagining their boy waiting alone somewhere in eternity, counting the years until they could be reunited. But the revelation that came through completely shattered this heartbreaking misconception. Cayce explained that the child's soul didn't experience years of waiting, months of loneliness, or even moments of separation. To the departed, love itself has the power to collapse time completely. The boy's awareness of his parents remained immediate, alive and constant, not because he was somehow watching them from a distance, but because love operates outside the constraints of temporal reality altogether. Behind the scenes of what we call death lies something far more profound than the simple ending of biological functions. Death represents a release into a dimension where time bends, stretches, and dissolves into something our physical brains can barely comprehend. Your decisions about how to love, how to forgive, how to release attachment, these choices determine not just your current peace of mind, but the actual fabric of reality you'll step into when that transition occurs. The impact of this understanding reaches into every aspect of how we approach our spiritual development. When you choose to let go of resentment, you're not just improving your current emotional state, you're literally preparing for a dimension where consciousness itself shapes temporal experience. When you cultivate genuine compassion, you're developing the very skills needed to navigate a reality where love transcends every limitation we associate with physical existence. This revelation means that reunion with those we love isn't something distant we have to wait for, it's something that already exists in a dimension beyond our current perception. The mindset we maintain about connection, separation, and time itself becomes the lens through which we'll experience these eternal truths. Now, I want to explore how this principle applies to the actual mechanics of what happens during those crucial first moments after the soul leaves the physical body, because understanding this process will revolutionize how you prepare for your own eventual transition. Write in the comments, "Love transcends time," if you're beginning to understand how connection works beyond physical limitations. The profound impact of these revelations reached new depths during the war years, when desperate families needed more than hope. They needed a complete transformation in how they understood separation itself. Cayce's messages to these grieving families contained perhaps the most revolutionary insight of all. What seemed like years of absence here on earth could be, for the departed soul, nothing more than the equivalent of a single heartbeat. This wasn't metaphorical comfort. This was describing the actual mechanics of how consciousness operates beyond physical limitations. Picture the relief that flooded through those small rooms in Virginia Beach when families realized their loved ones weren't trapped in some cosmic waiting room, counting the endless days until reunion. The hidden truth was that separation itself was largely an illusion, created by our earthbound perspective on time. Behind the scenes of what we call death, connection remains immediate and constant. Cayce would often use a beautiful metaphor to help people understand this concept. He compared our earthly experience of time to the shadow of a tree swaying in the wind. The shadow shifts constantly, moving across the ground, appearing to change and dance with each breeze. But the tree itself, representing eternal consciousness, remains perfectly steady and unmoved. Just as shadows are temporary projections, so is our way of counting hours, days, and years. What we mistake for reality is actually just the flickering shadow cast by something far more permanent and profound. This understanding doesn't mean that nothing matters once we cross over. The journey of consciousness continues, but in ways that completely transcend our current framework. While clocks and calendars vanish in the afterlife, personal development and spiritual growth still matter. Profoundly, a soul who resists growth, who clings to old patterns of resentment or fear, can experience what we might call delay. But this delay isn't measured in minutes or months. Instead, it's felt as the weight of consciousness itself, the heaviness that comes from carrying unresolved emotions into a dimension where thoughts and feelings become the very fabric of reality. Your mindset and decisions today are creating the foundation for how easily you'll navigate that transition. Every choice toward forgiveness, every step in personal transformation, every moment of genuine spiritual development is preparing you for a reality where consciousness itself shapes experience. The revelations Cayce shared weren't just comforting ideas. They were practical guidance for souls preparing to enter dimensions where inner state determines everything. Now I want to reveal how this principle works in reverse. How the state of consciousness you maintain right now is already connected to the timeless realm, creating bridges between earthly experience and eternal awareness. Write in the comments, consciousness shapes reality. If you're ready to understand how your inner state affects both your current life and your eternal journey. The deeper we explore these revelations, the more we discover how our current emotional patterns are actively shaping our eternal destiny. Cayce delivered one of his most sobering warnings about this connection. Resentment and hatred don't just poison your physical body during earthly life, they actually trap the soul in illusions of endless suffering after death. This isn't some form of cosmic punishment handed down by external forces. It's simply natural law operating at the level of consciousness itself. Your mindset right now, your decisions about forgiveness, your journey through personal transformation, these elements are literally programming the dimensional frequency you'll inhabit beyond physical death. The hidden truth behind Cayce's warnings becomes clear when we understand that consciousness creates its own temporal reality. If you're carrying deep bitterness or unresolved anger, that emotional vibration doesn't simply vanish when your body dies. Instead, it becomes the lens through which you experience eternity, potentially making moments feel like stretching centuries of inner torment. But here's where the revelations become even more extraordinary. Cayce described how different spiritual planes operate with completely different time vibrations. In certain elevated dimensions, what we measure as a millennium could pass in the blink of an eye for souls who have learned to align with higher frequencies of love and peace. Yet in other planes, typically those inhabited by souls still attached to earthly resentments, what feels like a moment to us could unfold as a vast, seemingly endless age for the consciousness trapped there. This understanding revolutionizes everything about how we approach spiritual development. Behind the scenes of physical reality, you're already preparing for dimensional navigation. Every choice toward emotional healing, every step in releasing old grudges, every moment of genuine forgiveness is raising your vibrational frequency, essentially preparing you to inhabit those higher planes where time flows with grace rather than weight. The impact of this becomes particularly profound when we consider what Cayce revealed about the interval between death and potential rebirth. When people asked about reincarnation timing, he consistently explained that the measure of waiting isn't chronological but vibrational. A soul with unresolved lessons, deep attachments, or unfinished emotional business might experience what we would call delay, not because time is passing slowly, but because the consciousness isn't ready to move forward in its eternal journey. If these insights created that sense of recognition deep inside, that, yes, this explains what I've always sensed feeling, hit that like button. It helps this content reach others ready for these profound truths. Your personal transformation today is directly connected to this process. The inner work you're doing now, the decisions you're making about releasing negativity and embracing higher states of awareness, are determining not just your current quality of life, but the actual speed and ease of your soul's progression through different dimensions of existence. Now, I want to reveal how Cayce's most profound insights about consciousness and time connect directly to what modern science is discovering about the nature of reality itself. Write in the comments, "I'm releasing resentment," if you're ready to start clearing the emotional patterns that could trap you in lower vibrational planes. The profound implications of this understanding become crystal clear when we realize that spiritual development isn't measured in earthly achievements or years of study. It's determined by actual consciousness transformation. A soul carrying unfinished emotional lessons, deep attachments, or unresolved patterns might experience what feels like an extended pause before returning to physical incarnation. But here's the revolutionary part. Another soul that's genuinely ready, one that has learned to release attachment and embrace higher awareness, may pass through that same interval almost instantly. The hidden truth behind this process completely transforms how we should approach our current lifetime. The key question isn't how many years will pass, but rather how much authentic growth has occurred. Your journey of personal development right now isn't just improving your current circumstances. It's literally determining the speed and ease of your soul's progression through different phases of existence. Behind the scenes of what we call death lies a process that Cayce described with remarkable detail. In one particularly moving case, he explained that a deceased father wasn't trapped in some cosmic waiting room counting the days. Instead, the soul existed in what he called a review state, a dimension where the consciousness absorbed and integrated lessons from the completed lifetime. This period wasn't experienced as years of tedious waiting, but as an eternal present of understanding, completely free from the pressure and anxiety we associate with time. The impact of this revelation extends far beyond death itself. It means that right now, your decisions about forgiveness, your mindset about growth, your willingness to release old patterns, these choices are preparing you for dimensional transitions that operate outside conventional time altogether. The transformation you undergo in consciousness becomes the foundation for how smoothly you'll navigate these eternal processes. But perhaps most intriguing are Cayce's descriptions of what he called the borderland states, those immediate hours and days after the soul leaves the physical body. During this transition period, consciousness often perceives time with intense distortion. Minutes can feel endless, particularly if the departing soul clings desperately to earthly attachments, relationships, or unfinished business. The very act of attachment creates a kind of temporal drag, making the natural transition process feel stretched and heavy. This understanding places enormous significance on the inner work you're doing today. Every step toward emotional freedom, every choice to release control and trust the natural flow of existence, every moment of genuine spiritual surrender is preparing your consciousness to navigate these transitions with grace rather than resistance. Now, I want to explore how advanced souls and spiritual guides work with newly departed consciousness to help them adjust to this radically different perception of time and reality. Write in the comments, "I'm preparing my consciousness," if you understand how your current spiritual development affects your eternal transitions. What makes this transition process even more profound is how the spiritual realm operates with a sophisticated support system that most people never imagine. Advanced souls, those who have progressed further in their consciousness development and learned to navigate these timeless dimensions with ease, often step forward to meet the newly departed. These guides don't just offer comfort, they provide practical assistance in helping confused souls adjust to this radically different perception of time and reality. Picture stepping into a world where there are no clocks, no sunrise or sunset, no familiar rhythms to anchor your awareness. The transformation from linear, earthbound time to consciousness-based temporal flow can be overwhelming for souls still carrying attachment to physical patterns. Behind the scenes of what we call death, these advanced beings work patiently to help newcomers release their grip on earthly time concepts and embrace the natural rhythm of eternal consciousness. This understanding places incredible significance on the decisions you're making right now, in this very moment. Each choice to forgive rather than harbor resentment, each decision to serve others instead of focusing solely on personal gain, each step toward cultivating genuine inner peace isn't just improving your current circumstances, it's literally shaping the texture and quality of your afterlife experience. The impact of daily spiritual practice becomes a preparation for navigating dimensions where consciousness itself creates reality. Your mindset about forgiveness, your journey through personal transformation, your willingness to release control and embrace higher awareness, these elements determine not only how smoothly you'll make the transition, but also which vibrational planes you'll naturally gravitate toward once you cross over. The hidden truth is that spiritual development here directly translates to dimensional navigation there, but Cayce also revealed the sobering reality of what happens to souls who remain trapped in lower vibrational patterns. In what he described as lower spiritual realms, dimensions often associated with unrest, earthly attachment, or unresolved emotional patterns, souls sometimes report experiencing what feels like endless, stretching time. Here, suffering doesn't just hurt, it magnifies every moment, making brief periods feel like extended torture. The revelations show that these aren't external punishments, but natural consequences of carrying heavy emotional baggage into dimensions where thoughts and feelings become the very fabric of temporal experience. A soul trapped in resentment, fear, or desperate attachment to earthly concerns creates its own prison of extended time, where each moment of inner turmoil feels amplified and eternal. Now I want to explore how these different spiritual planes operate with completely different temporal laws, and why understanding this hierarchy becomes crucial for anyone serious about conscious spiritual development. Write in the comments. Guides are waiting if you're ready to understand how spiritual assistance works in the dimensions beyond physical death. The contrast between these different spiritual dimensions reveals the most extraordinary aspect of consciousness-based time. In the higher planes of light and harmony that Cayce described, souls who have achieved genuine peace and spiritual alignment experience temporal flow in a completely different way. 1,000 Earth years could pass, yet the soul existing in these elevated frequencies might experience that entire span as nothing more than a fleeting, blissful instant. This demonstrates the ultimate principle behind all of Cayce's revelations. Consciousness itself creates temporal experience. Your mindset, your emotional vibration, your journey toward inner peace. These aren't just personal development concepts, they're literally determining which dimensional frequency you'll naturally align with after death. The transformation you undergo spiritually becomes the foundation for the quality of eternity you'll experience. The impact of understanding this hierarchy completely revolutionized how families in Virginia Beach approached grief and separation. Cayce's teachings showed them that reunion with loved ones was always far closer than they imagined, not because time moved faster in the afterlife, but because eternity exists as something alive and present rather than stretched out as monotonous waiting. Behind the scenes of physical death, connection remains immediate for souls operating at higher vibrational levels. This perspective creates a stunning shift in how we understand the scale of existence itself. What we call human history, all the civilizations, wars, discoveries, and cultural movements that seem so monumentally important, might represent only a brief moment in the vast continuum of eternal consciousness. What we experience as a complete lifetime, with all its struggles, achievements, and relationships, might be just a single breath in the soul's infinite journey through different dimensions of awareness. Your decisions today about forgiveness, compassion, and spiritual development aren't just affecting this temporary physical experience. They're shaping your position within a cosmic hierarchy that operates according to consciousness rather than chronology. Every choice toward higher awareness is essentially preparing you to inhabit those planes where time dissolves into pure presence, where connection transcends all illusion of separation. The hidden truth becomes clear. We're not just living a single lifetime followed by some distant afterlife. We're participating in an ongoing transformation of consciousness that determines our experience across multiple dimensions of existence, where the quality of awareness we cultivate becomes the very fabric of our eternal reality. Now, I want to reveal how Cayce's most profound insights about eternal consciousness connect to practical techniques you can use right now to begin experiencing these timeless states while still in your physical body. Write in the comments, "Consciousness is eternal," if you're beginning to understand how your spiritual development affects your position in the cosmic hierarchy of awareness. The source of Cayce's remarkable insights becomes even more extraordinary when we understand where he claimed to access this information. During his trance states, he described drawing from what he called the Akashic Records, a universal memory field where every thought, action, and intention throughout all existence was recorded completely outside the constraints of linear time. Picture a cosmic library where all books exist simultaneously, where past, present, and future merge into a single, accessible moment of eternal awareness. This perspective revolutionizes how we understand healing and personal transformation. According to Cayce's revelations, trauma, growth, and healing can literally transcend centuries because what we believe happened long ago in previous lifetimes remains vibrantly alive in the soul's current vibration until it's genuinely resolved. The hidden truth behind many unexplained fears, attractions, and emotional patterns might exist in this eternal present, where the soul's journey across multiple incarnations creates an ongoing stream of experience rather than separate, disconnected lives. Your decisions about healing, forgiveness, and emotional release today aren't just affecting your current circumstances, they're potentially resolving patterns that have echoed across vast spans of what we measure as time. The impact of genuine spiritual work reaches backward and forward through the soul's entire journey, creating transformation that operates outside chronological limitations. Behind the scenes of Cayce's most profound teachings lay a principle that mirrors what Einstein was discovering about physical reality during the same era. Just as Einstein revealed that physical time bends with speed and gravity, Cayce described how spiritual time bends with vibration and consciousness. The mindset you maintain, the emotional frequency you operate from, the level of awareness you cultivate, these factors literally alter your experience of temporal reality, both here and in dimensions beyond physical death. This understanding means that advanced spiritual practice isn't just preparation for some distant afterlife. It's training for navigating a multidimensional reality where consciousness itself shapes temporal experience. Every moment of genuine meditation, every breakthrough in forgiveness, every step toward higher awareness is developing skills that operate across multiple planes of existence. The transformation occurring in your consciousness right now is creating ripples through what Cayce described as the eternal records, affecting not only your current trajectory, but potentially healing patterns that have influenced your soul's journey through multiple lifetimes and dimensional experiences. Now, I want to explore how these principles translate into specific practices you can implement immediately to begin experiencing glimpses of timeless awareness while still inhabiting your physical body. Write in the comments, "Healing transcends time," if you're ready to understand how your current spiritual work affects patterns across multiple lifetimes. The profound responsibility that emerges from understanding these principles becomes almost overwhelming when you realize that every single choice you make in each present moment isn't just affecting your current circumstances. It's literally determining how the afterlife unfolds, and more importantly, how long each experience feels once you're there. This places immense weight on daily decisions that we often consider insignificant. Your mindset about forgiveness, your journey through releasing old resentments, your transformation from fear-based thinking to love-based awareness. These internal shifts are programming the very fabric of your eternal experience. Behind the scenes of Cayce's most practical teachings lay a revolutionary approach to spiritual development that went far beyond traditional religious practices. He encouraged stillness, prayer, and meditation not merely as acts of devotion, but as genuine exercises in stepping outside of linear time altogether. These practices weren't just preparation for death, they were authentic windows into experiencing the actual nature of the afterlife while still inhabiting your physical body. The impact of consistent meditation extends beyond stress relief or emotional balance. It's literally training your consciousness to navigate dimensions where time operates according to awareness rather than chronology. During those quiet moments of deep meditation or prayer, many of Cayce's followers reported experiencing glimpses of timelessness, periods where hours seemed to pass like seconds, or seconds expanded into infinite awareness. These weren't hallucinations or wishful thinking. According to Cayce, they were authentic previews of how consciousness operates beyond the constraints of physical time. Your decisions about developing a regular spiritual practice today are preparing you for dimensions where these experiences become the norm rather than rare exceptions. But perhaps the most sobering aspect of Cayce's revelations concerned what happens to unresolved emotional patterns after death. Even though earthly life ends and the physical body dissolves, consciousness that clings desperately to resentment, anger, or unfinished business can create a prison of extended temporal experience. Imagine being locked in a room with your own most troubling thoughts, unable to escape until genuine forgiveness and release occur. The hidden truth is that these emotional patterns don't simply vanish at death. They become the very environment that consciousness inhabits in the afterlife. This understanding transforms every moment of inner work into preparation for eternity itself. The journey toward emotional freedom, the transformation of negative patterns, the cultivation of genuine peace and compassion. These aren't just improving your current quality of life. They're determining whether your consciousness will flow freely through higher dimensions or remain trapped in lower vibrational planes. Now I want to reveal how Cayce's final years brought even more urgent warnings about the connection between present moment awareness and eternal consciousness, because what he discovered about the nature of time will fundamentally change how you approach every remaining day of your life. Write in the comments, "I choose freedom," if you're ready to start releasing the emotional patterns that could trap your consciousness in lower dimensions. The Transformation in understanding reached its most profound depths through one of Cayce's most emotionally powerful readings. A heartbroken widow, consumed by the fear that her husband was somehow counting the long, empty years until their reunion, received an answer that would revolutionize everything she thought she knew about connection across dimensions. Cayce, speaking through his trance state, gently explained that her husband didn't experience the stretching years she feared because love itself possessed the power to collapse the illusion of waiting entirely. Even more remarkable was the revelation that her nightly prayers weren't traveling across vast spiritual distances to somehow eventually reach him. Instead, they connected with his consciousness instantly through vibrational resonance. The hidden truth behind spiritual connection operates outside every limitation we associate with physical separation. Your love, your thoughts, your genuine intentions toward departed souls don't have to traverse time and space. They exist in the eternal present, where all consciousness ultimately resides. Behind the scenes of Cayce's declining health during his final years, his urgency about these teachings intensified dramatically. As his physical body weakened, his insights about the nature of time became even more direct and challenging. He repeatedly emphasized to those closest to him that he had seen beyond what he called the clock of man, and discovered something that would shake the foundation of how we approach existence itself. The truest freedom, he insisted, wasn't something we achieve after death. It was the realization that eternity is now, not some distant future state. This understanding completely revolutionizes your approach to spiritual development and personal transformation. Every moment of genuine presence, every decision to embrace love over fear, every choice to release attachment and trust the flow of existence, these aren't just improving your current experience. They're connecting you directly with the eternal consciousness that already exists within and around you. The impact of this revelation becomes particularly powerful when we consider how Cayce consistently responded to the question that haunted so many grieving families: how long will I have to wait for reunion? His answer consistently challenged the very premise of the question itself. The soul, he explained, doesn't wait the way humans think waiting works. Waiting belongs to the physical body, to the rotation of Earth, to the ticking of clocks. The soul moves according to entirely different rhythms, rhythms of growth, harmony, and consciousness expansion. Your journey toward understanding this principle begins right now, in this present moment, because what Cayce discovered about the nature of eternity means that every single choice you make is literally building the quality of your forever. What you've discovered today about the nature of time, consciousness, and eternity represents some of the most profound wisdom ever channeled through human experience. These aren't just comforting ideas or philosophical concepts. They're practical insights that can transform how you approach every remaining moment of your earthly journey. The understanding that your present choices are literally shaping the fabric of your eternal experience places each decision, each thought, each act of forgiveness or compassion into a completely new context. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who recognizes that there's something deeper operating beneath the surface of ordinary spiritual teaching. The revelations coming through Edgar Cayce weren't meant for casual curiosity. They were designed for souls ready to take full responsibility for their consciousness development across multiple dimensions of existence. This is exactly why I create content like this, to reach people who are genuinely prepared to explore the profound mysteries that most of the world isn't ready to hear. If you found value in these insights, if they shifted something fundamental in how you understand your spiritual journey, then I'd love to have you subscribe to this channel. The explorations we dive into here go far beyond surface-level spiritual content, and having you as part of this community means these deeper revelations can continue reaching the people meant to receive them. If these teachings about time and consciousness resonated with something deep inside, you leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me. Let me know you stayed with this journey all the way to the end." And if you felt that connection, that sense of recognition as these truths unfolded, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps me know we're building something meaningful together. Your understanding of these principles is just beginning. There's a video right here that takes these concepts even deeper, exploring how consciousness actually navigates between different dimensional planes and what that means for your daily spiritual practice. Click and continue with me over there. The journey into these mysteries has only just begun, and what you'll discover next might completely revolutionize how you approach your own transformation.